breaking news. Imagine being turned in by your own mother. Well, that is what just happened to 19-year-old Tyson Proper of Ohio, and good for Mom. Everyone should be thanking his mother, including the FBI. On Sunday, a beautiful night of celebration drawing tens of thousands could have ended in mass fatalities if it were not for his mother. To the public Sunday UFC event at the White House, it went seamlessly, but now we are learning there was terror lurking. 5 suspects are in custody for planning an alleged multi-phase terror attack at the UFC event at the White House. More on that in just a moment. And President Trump did not hold back when speaking about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Today at the G7 in France, Trump issued a warning to Netanyahu.
I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon.
Trump also had a warning for Iran.
They're not going to acquire a nuclear weapon. If they do, all hell will rain down on them.
More on that in just a moment. And as the United States welcomes soccer teams from all over the world, one team is complaining about the U.S. travel restrictions. Start guessing which nation's team. And guess who's back in the news? If you guessed Jeffrey Epstein, you are right. A new report has some shocking details about his time in jail. That later this hour. I'm Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. Today, President Trump spoke multiple times at the G7 summit in France. First, he talked about Israel.
Without the United States, there would be no Israel. Without me, there would be no Israel, because no other president was willing to do what I did. I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon. Now, I'm not happy with the way Israel has handled themselves with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. They should have been able to do the job faster. It just goes on forever. And when that happens, it throws a negative light on the big deal, and that's the deal with Iran.
And although we are still waiting for the confirmation of the details of the Memorandum of Understanding between the U.S. and Iran, some people in Israel are not thrilled with what they are hearing. Today, the Jerusalem Post editorial board published an opinion piece with the headline, quote, "Israel cannot applaud an Iran deal that leaves key threats intact," end quote. But it's not just Israel that President Trump talked tough about today. The president also had some tough words for Iran.
I will send it to Congress. I like the idea.
On another topic,
I mean, who wouldn't approve it? Let's let them have a nuclear weapon. They will not develop, purchase, buy, or any other thing. They're not going to acquire a nuclear weapon. If they do, all hell will rain down on them.
Former White House Chief of Staff and former member of Congress from North Carolina, Mark Meadows, joins me. Nice to see you, Mark.
Great to be with you, Greta.
We have a copy of what is purported to be the memorandum that state TV in Saudi Arabia has released. And I imagine it was run past Saudi Arabia as part of this. You've seen it. There are some noticeable omissions in it, like anything about proxies, paying proxies. And
listen, we have to be real cautious anytime you get a leaked document, and certainly a document that is a prelude to a final document. You have to be cautious. But some of the areas that U.S. interests would have strong support of is those proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas. You heard the president just talking about that in the opening remarks as you played that tape. It is critical that Iran actually does a reversal of what they've been doing, and that is all about making sure that they're not a state sponsor of terror. Some of the other relief that they have there hopefully will be conditioned upon that, not just on the nuclear capability of which it addresses in several paragraphs.
Well, it does say that Iran agrees that it says Point 8, assuming this is authentic, the Islamic Republic of Iran reiterates that it will never produce nuclear weapons. That's good. That was a purpose. But you can understand, when I used to try cases, we do something called impeachment by omission. It's what's not there that is, almost as a spotlight on it. And you can understand why the Jerusalem Post editorial, why Prime Minister Netanyahu is upset, because they've been terrorized by the Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah.
Well, and they're in their neighborhood.
And they're
right?
in their neighborhood.
And so it's very different if we were talking about Mexico and Canada that are largely on our borders, in terms of Scud missiles or other short-term missiles going in. That's the other thing that I hope that they identify in this that was not in the document that I reviewed, intercontinental ballistic missiles.
There's nothing about that, and he criticized President Obama for not addressing the ballistic missiles and the JCPOA. That's
yeah,
another.
but I'm
hopeful, times changes.
Right,
I get it.
I'm hopeful that they will address that when it comes to nuclear capability. There's no reason to have an intercontinental ballistic missile other than delivering a warhead to the United States and other places well beyond their current reach. That being said, I think probably the other part of this is the next 60 days is going to be key. They're going to get their foot off, the boot off their neck, so to speak, and the next 60 days they're going to have to come up with something finalized. I think the president has, in fact, I know the president has a number of advisors who will be dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Hopefully they'll do that.
Well, the president says without the United States, there's no Israel. I don't know if he's talking about back in the late 40s or if he's talking about now. He says, without me, there'd be no Israel. And although I don't think Israel has publicly said it, I think it's widely assumed or known or whatever that Israel does have its own nuclear weapon.
Well, it does. Israel is one of the few in the Middle East that actually has a nuclear weapon. They've got great capability, both from a national security standpoint and intel standpoint. I will say that part of him trying to look at Lebanon is saying, let's lower the temperature for the next 60 days. Let's get something that's binding. But it goes beyond just a nuclear weapon. It should be the enrichment of nuclear fissile material, of which it doesn't really spell that out in there, because the only reason you would be enriching to the levels that they're enriching now is for a nuclear weapon.
Let me tell you how sneaky, I am. Maybe it's because I was always in trouble in school, but it says, this is just a memorandum. I don't know if it's a leak thing. I don't know if it's real or whatever, but I'm picking it apart with assumption that it's authentic. It says they will never produce nuclear weapons. Well, it doesn't mean they won't get it from one of their pals. It doesn't. I'm so. I'm
probably
so
not as caustic as it comes to that, because I do think that what they will do is, in a final agreement, it will certainly preclude that, whether
probably
it's
you're right.
getting it from Korea or China or anybody else. But the real thing that's an opportunity for Iran is do you want to have an economy that is a 21st century economy? That was spelled out in more graphic detail, whether it's a $300 billion loan from the IMF.
It said financing of at least $300 billion. So I guess the $300 billion that they would get on this, that's just a loan?
Yeah, I think it's probably an IMF, kind of thing. It's not necessarily money directly from the American taxpayers, but helping facilitate that actually would go a long ways to bring Iran into a modern-day economy.
All right, President Trump said, it'd be a good idea or something to send it to Congress, assuming that this is the memorandum of understanding, that it's authentic, assuming that there is a deal. Can you predict for me or think about this going to Congress? Treaties have to go to Congress. This isn't a treaty. JCPOA was not a treaty, but how would this be played in Congress?
So I don't see it getting approved or disapproved by Congress. I don't think the administration will allow that to happen. President Obama really didn't allow that to happen. When you look at that, do I think that treaties need to be confirmed by Congress? The answer is yes. But as you well know, and I've seen in practice, there are two other ways to actually have these kinds of agreements. You provide, you get advice and consent, but basically it's a memorandum that actually has binding authority on the administration.
Except that I assume that Iran would play back on us is that, yeah, you signed it today, meaning 2026, but look what you did with the JCPOA. It wasn't a treaty. So,
well, and they may do that.
Yeah.
And the other is there was one footnote in there about the UN Security Council. So maybe what they're looking at is to have the implementation through the UN, which is rather unique to see that in this document. Iran probably knows that the UN is more hostile to America and Israel than the U.S. Congress certainly would be.
Anyway. Well, let's hope for the best, although I must admit that this has not been, I'm not wildly embracing it, but I only know a little bit, and it might not be the real thing, and it's just a start.
We'll know soon.
We'll wait till the end. Anyway,
Yeah.
Mark Meadows, it's always
All right.
nice to see you. And at least 5 people are in custody in connection to an alleged plot to attack the White House UFC event. One of the detainees is 19-year-old Tyson Proper. He's being held without bond at the Franklin County Jail in Ohio. According to the federal criminal complaint, on June 10, Proper's mother called police with concerns about her son. Proper's parents said they were worried about recent firearm purchases and communications with random people online. The complaint says Proper admitted to planning an attack. Officials say the alleged plan involved hitting buildings near the White House with drones carrying explosives. Luckily, on June 11th, Ohio officials contacted the FBI. FBI Director Kash Patel says in part, quote, "Thanks to the rapid action of this FBI, our partners, and the Department of Justice in a multi-state operation, multiple individuals are now in custody and allegedly planned attacks were stopped cold," end quote. 2 others have also been arrested. They are Brian Omar Roa and Michael Allen Thomas. Both men are from California. Thomas had allegedly admitted to law enforcement that he did help plan the attack. Roa has denied any involvement. Reporter for the Washington Examiner, Emily Hallas, joins me. Nice to see you. And can you give me any more information on the people that are involved in this or what their plans were, allegedly?
Yes, well, good to be here. Yes, so there were 5 people, like you said, arrested in connection to this plot. In the documents filed in court, investigators believe that they were targeting, quote, capitalist billionaires and people supportive of AIPAC. So American Jews supporting Israel that were at the event. And you might remember people like Senators Ted Cruz were at the event. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg was at the event. So, these are some potential targets there. Of course, Trump and Vice President Vance were at that event. Some of the latest court documents we're seeing say that some of the people involved were making anti-Semitic comments and, sympathetic comments about Adolf Hitler. And so, yes, this is kind of the setup here. And again, 5 people have been arrested in connection to this at this point.
Do you have any sense whether it's just limited to 5? I mean, is the FBI now convinced it has done enough, or it's still early on, or is this a broader? I mean, this is an online horrible terrorist plan. Obviously, and good for the mother. But is this particular plot likely to be larger?
So from what we have so far, it doesn't appear to be foreign-based or have foreign connections. So in that sense, it doesn't seem to be part of a larger global plot. There are, I believe, around 20 that appear to be somewhat involved in this allegedly. So, it's not one individual. It does seem to be a group here, but not global.
So the plan was to strike. The plan was to strike a nearby building, have everyone panic, stomp on everybody, and that was phase 1. And then then the phase 2, people would go in with guns. It wasn't. I think that was generally the outline of this horrible terrorist plan.
Yes. So essentially, it sounds like an ambush, right? You attack this building, people are fleeing, and then you have snipers and armed drones, explosive-laden drones that are shooting at those fleeing people. And again, you have thousands of people at this event, 85,000 people on the grounds of the Ellipse, which is where some members of the public were watching nearby. You have Trump and top cabinet officials attending directly in front of the claw, that stage that you see there. So again, very high profile event, thousands of members of the public. So there were a lot of targets.
Good for Mom, good for the FBI and everybody else involved. Emily Hallas, thank you very much.
Good to be here.
And coming up, President Trump gets a belated birthday gift. What does he think about it? That when the record continues.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Summer is coming fast. Get your best body now with Sono Bello. Just one visit is all it takes to permanently remove stubborn fat.
I went from this to this in just one visit.
Our micro laser technology transforms your body.
My shirts were extra large. Now I'm wearing a bikini.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews and is America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Call now for your personalized consultation. That's over a $250 value. Free. Call Sono Bello today.
The agency is cleaning house.
This is a mole hunt.
Trust no one. Not even me.
Were you asked to look into me?
And if I was?
This isn't a fishing trip. This is a manhunt, killer capture. You're hunting a predator. Miss the kill shot. It comes for you.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's All-American customer service team is standing by.
When you get the endorsement from President Trump, you are likely to win your primary this midterm season. According to Ballotpedia, the president's primary success rate is 98%. So far, the president has endorsed more than 100 candidates.
Every time I endorse, they win. It's been a pretty amazing track record. I was 18-0 this last week. And a lot of them are insurgents.
But today, the Trump endorsement is being put to the test. In Georgia, President Trump is backing Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones in his bid to become governor. Outgoing Governor Brian Kemp is also backing Jones. Jones is up against billionaire Rick Jackson in today's runoff. Jackson, who is healthcare tycoon, has spent more than $100 million in the race, mostly from his own pocket. It's interesting to note that Texas Senator Ted Cruz is backing Jackson. Cruz says Jackson is the strongest conservative who can win the race. Also in Georgia, there's a crucial runoff in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. President Trump is backing Congressman Mike Collins. He's up against former college football coach Derek Dooley. Governor Kemp is backing Dooley over Collins. Here's what both candidates have recently said.
A vote for Mike Collins is a vote for John Ossoff. A vote for me is a vote for Steve Jones.
Mr. President, thank you so much for your endorsement. You don't know what that means to me. I appreciate you putting confidence in me to make sure that we put someone in that U.S. Senate seat that represents not just the state of Georgia, but the people and our values.
The winner takes on the incumbent Democrat Senator John Ossoff in November. And could there be a fight brewing in our nation's capital? Today is the Washington, D.C. mayoral primary. Democratic Socialist candidate Janice Louis George is up in the polls. So why is this race getting national attention? Because Louis George has been compared to New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani because of their mutual socialist policies. If she wins, President Trump will not be happy.
Well, I wouldn't like it, and maybe we'd take back Washington, run it on the federal basis. We won't put up with it. We're not going to lose our businesses. By the way, Washington now is a safe, beautiful place.
Candidate Louis George responded to the president.
The reality is that the people of D.C. vote for the mayor of D.C. And the president threatening home rule because he doesn't like how residents may vote, to me is an attack on democracy itself. I will work with anyone to the benefit of D.C. residents. That includes Trump, that includes his administration, and it even includes Republicans in Congress.
CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me, and former Special Assistant to President Biden, Michael LaRosa, joins me. Madam, go first to you about the midterms, and I have what purports to be a memorandum of understanding. I can't authenticate it. It's leaked. It's got all the problems of leaks, but it's from Saudi Arabia state media, so it sort of pushes me over to think it's more authentic or not. But nonetheless, Prime Minister Netanyahu is unhappy about it. There is no mention about the proxies in what I've seen. Doesn't mean it can't be added in the next 60 days or later. But if this is authentic and if it excludes Israel and the proxies in the completed deal, does that impact the Jewish vote here in November?
Sadly, the Jewish vote is a lock for the Democrats, which seems impossible. We've made a little bit of progress and a little bit of progress each cycle, and it's a small percentage. So I don't know what maybe in certain districts it'd make a big difference. Most of those districts would sadly also be purple to blue. I think the bigger question is this, which is there any piece of paper that the Iranian government could sign that would actually, prevent them from doing terrible things in the future? And I'd say no. The reason why Iran will be kept in a box is because Trump is president. If somebody becomes the president who's like Joe Biden and Barack Obama, who draw lines and then let the bad guys cross the lines, the paper won't be worth the ink won't be worth the paper it's written on.
But as an aside, just to sort of counter that, Michael, is that these agreements, no matter what they are, I mean, you hope people will keep their word on it, but they are not treaties. I mean, we're not even bound by it. I mean, Trump ripped up the JCPOA. I mean, these are just, it goes from administration to administration unless it was signed as a treaty. But we haven't had a treaty in I don't know how many
Because
decades.
it takes a supermajority through the Senate.
So that's not happening. So maybe, that's what Iran is probably thinking about us, too.
Oh, I'm sure. But the Democrats are sort of salivating at the notion that this deal will not be anywhere near as tough as Barack Obama's. Even Barack Obama himself spoke up and said there's no way he's going to get a better deal than what we got. And so I think Democrats are very anxious to hold this over their head and to use Obama as sort of to get under the president's skin, because I think Democrats know that they won't get a better deal than what President Obama
So what did
got.
Obama get? Obama got Iran on the cusp of a nuclear weapon.
It would be over by now anyway. It had a sunset provision. It was
gave him $150 billion through one iteration. So
but
it's like
Democrats don't care. They want the talking point that says our deal was so much tougher on Iran. Obama's deal was so much better than Trump's. That's it. And that's all the president needs to hear to get angry and go back to the table, or maybe keep bombing.
Well,
and we get to use it to our advantage.
I will say this. These things are leaked, as you know, Greta, you know this better than I do. These things are leaked because they're trial balloons. You want to see how everyone reacts. That could be the case here. They could change it a little bit because there's a reaction. And, I think that the real issue here overall is that Trump might have to go back and take military action in the future if they renege in any way on supporting terrorism, fighting Israel, or building a nuclear weapon.
Watch Morning Joe tomorrow morning. They're salivating, they're smiling, they're giddy over this.
I can't watch Morning Joe.
I know,
this
but they are
was a big surprise.
But they are the
I don't watch them.
But they are a barometer because Trump watches them and reacts to them.
Well, he was quite rude to me when I was there. Anyway, nothing. All right, Michael, since Matt's a foreigner, he doesn't live in D.C.
Neither do I anymore.
Oh, you don't?
But
well,
I did for 18 years.
You do.
But I did for 18 years. I'm following the race.
The mayoral race here in D.C. Okay.
Yeah,
Neither one of you have any dog in this race.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a dog in the race, but I don't like the fact that a democratic socialist
or a socialist Democrat,
whatever she calls herself, could be the next mayor, because I don't think it's good for the Democratic Party nationally. I think the Republicans will exploit that. I don't know what she was talking about there in the clip. I mean, she doesn't.
If she wins the nomination tonight, she will be mayor.
She has no choice but to work with the president of the United States. That's where her budget comes from. Like, she has no choice. And I think actually
it's important for the people to understand that, right?
Right.
Which is, it's not like any other city.
That's correct.
This is our nation's capital. It's supposed to be somewhat run a little bit differently under Congress.
Not what you're saying, but people don't realize it under the Constitution. We can go a little bit deeper back. I mean, the home rule law was sort of as a gift to those of us who live in D.C., but it didn't give us full anything.
That's right.
So she,
I think we ought to take all this land and give it back to Maryland and Virginia.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that.
She has to understand that if she's elected, she has to be an adult. She has to be a partner to the president.
It's a 75% at least Democrat in the city, and if she, she can do whatever, if she gets nominated tonight, she's in.
But can I tell you the crazy part? Here you have Trump. He cleans up the city from a crime perspective, then cleans it up from like a rubbish and graffiti perspective, gets the fountains working, which I love, by the way, and gets the parks prettied.
The fountain is green today.
But I mean, you can't deny the fact that he's beautified this city.
No, I don't.
He's made it safer. He's made it safer.
I don't blame him. He has.
He has. And why isn't this like very popular with the residents of D.C.? Why? Orange man bad.
Yeah, I mean, Matt's right. It's just the obsessive need to criticize or to fight, as she said, fight Trump. That's what she wants, what people want to do, and that's not smart. That's not an adult.
That's going to make a terrible mess in the city if that's what she wants.
It is.
They have a terrible mess. When Trump is gone, it's going to turn into the squalor that it was previously because somehow that's better. It's insane.
I mean,
we'll see what happens
The dirty
tonight.
secret is that even Democrats are happy with how the city is going right now.
Anyway, Matt Schlapp, Michael LaRosa, thank you. We didn't even get to J.D. Vance's new book. We will.
Mike Collins for Senate.
Okay. Coming up, some World Cup visitors are really happy with their trip to America. Some are not. That when the record continues.
Tonight's Newsmax lineup is brought to you by Crown Atlantic. Protect what matters most with fast, affordable life insurance. Visit lifeforless.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing. And now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
You know, when it comes to gutter protection, there's a lot of names being thrown around out there, but there's only one Leaf Guard. Now, other companies will try to sell you a screen, a mesh, or a cover to go over your old gutters, but those don't compare to Leaf Guard. The top's not a cover, it's part of the gutter. Leaf Guard is the only patented one-piece seamless system with a clog-free guarantee and transferable lifetime warranty. And during our Ugly Gutters sale, trade in your old gutters and we'll give you up to $500 toward your purchase of a complete Leaf Guard system. And we'll even haul your old gutters away, plus 0 down and payment starting at just $75 a month. And call during this program for a bonus. Receive a free $100 Visa gift card with your in-home estimate. Leaf Guard is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and according to Guild Quality, Leaf Guard customers are twice as happy. But don't just take our word for it.
We just wanted to know that we had good gutters.
To never clean again, that sold me right there.
It's one seamless piece from one end to the other.
Leaf Guard works so well that it's received the Good Housekeeping seal for over 20 years. And it's attached to the fascia with screws, not nails. It's not coming down. And you get the added protection of our exclusive fascia wrap. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call during Leaf Guard's Ugly Gutters sale. Trade in your old gutters and we'll give you up to $500 towards your Leaf Guard purchase. We'll even haul your old gutters away. 0 down and payment starting at just $75 per month. Plus a bonus, call during this program for a free $100 Visa gift card with your in-home estimate. Call 1-800-541-1274. Now, let me give you that number again. 1-800-541-1274.
President Trump got a belated birthday gift. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz gave Trump a German soccer jersey with Trump's name on the back. Merz posted about it on X, quote, "Happy belated 80th birthday, President Trump. After all, we are on the same team," end quote. Meanwhile, is Iran's soccer team calling the United States bad hosts? Last night in Los Angeles, Iran tied with New Zealand 2-2, and after the match, the Iran team's coach says the team was forced to go back to their training camp in Mexico.
ملی ایران شاید مظلوم‌ترین تیم تاریخ ادوار مختلف جام جهانی باشه. کار مدیر تیمو که می‌خوایم تعویضا رو انجام بدیم، یه مربی داشت این کارو می‌کرد. یا بخشی از مسئولیت‌های قبل بازی رو عوضی که کادر فنی تمرکزشون رو مسائل فنی باشه رو کار مدیریتی بود.
On Sunday, Iran will travel back to Los Angeles for the next game against Belgium. As an aside, all teams have to go back to their camps after each match. Why? Well, that's where their hotels are. While Iran may be unhappy to travel from Mexico to the United States, they do not have the longest soccer team commute. Curacao is expected to rack up more than 6,000 miles round trip. Curaçao's team will travel from their Florida-based camp to games in Houston, Kansas City, and Philadelphia. For the next 4 weeks, teams from 48 different countries will play in 11 cities across the U.S. Executive Director of the White House Task Force for the FIFA World Cup, Andrew Giuliani, joins me. Nice to see you.
Hey, great to see you, Greta.
So tell me, how do these camps get determined? Is that you pick out of a hat, or it gets assigned by the World Cup, or by FIFA? How do these training camps get decided?
Yeah, it's by FIFA. It has to do with your ranking and then obviously the region that you're in, right? With Iran on the West Coast, just like the United States is on the West Coast, the United States has determined that Orange County, California would be a good place as they're playing 2 of their 3 matches in Los Angeles, with their second match being in Seattle. With regard to Iran, they originally were going to be in Tucson, Arizona. We had thorough discussions with FIFA about how we thought that Tijuana would be a better place for them. It'd be closer, actually, to Los Angeles as well, really reducing that commute. We had an agreement that they would be able to fly in 1 day before the match. They would leave immediately after the match, and they'd be able to go to Tijuana. As we said, it's about a 27-minute flight. It's not a long commute at all. As a matter of fact, the U.S. team comes up to Los Angeles that day of the match, and they leave that night, just like the Iranian team left last night. So this was all predetermined. We'd had months and months of discussions on this. We agreed to this over weeks ago. So we are very confident with the way it happened. I can tell you I was speaking directly throughout this with the FBI, with the CIA, with the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the movements last night went very well.
You know, it is sort of complicated, though, because, I mean, there are a lot of countries. I mean, we want to accommodate countries that we're not even friendly with. You know, and, you know, it actually, you know, they may have had their nose out of joint having to go to Mexico, but it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't seem so arduous to go to Mexico, but it is sort of complicated, even, for visas, for everything else. It's just not as easy as showing up at the airport hoping for the best.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And what we've had really Secretary Mullen and Secretary Rubio lean in on this and have CBP and USCIS on the Homeland Security side, along with Consular Affairs on the state side on this task force, talking to each other. That way we could really communicate and coordinate these dance steps. All 31 of the players had their visa to be able to come in. CBP worked with them to actually process them in Guadalajara. That way, when they hit the tarmac in LAX, they get right to the bus and get in there. So really, the U.S. government, President Trump, has bent over backwards to make sure that the play is fair on the field. And I also think it's really, really important to point out that all of the players, all of the coaches, anybody who actually will affect the match on the field, they've had the opportunity to get their visa to come into the United States. So the president really wants this to be a fair and safe event. I'll also go back to what Secretary Rubio said, though, a few weeks ago. He said, we're not going to let the guys of a soccer tournament, no matter how big it is, to allow people that have direct connections to the IRGC to come to the United States. And we stand by that.
Well, you know, it's sort of interesting watching this. Frankly, I've not been a huge soccer fan in the past, but it is contagious. Every place you go, you see kids in soccer outfits. I'm even curious. I'm following the games, and I can't believe it, But, I would never have predicted that. But it's been very exciting, very good for America. And what's really nice, you see all these countries getting along.
It absolutely is. And while this is the largest sporting event really that we've ever hosted, probably the largest sporting event in world history when you think of the fact that about 150 million people watch a Super Bowl, 1.3 billion people watch the opening U.S. match. We're expecting over 2 billion people to watch the World Cup final. Really, really, there's nothing like it. And the conversations that I've had with President Trump really, really highlight the legacy side of this. When you think about what this actually means for the United States of America to be able to host this World Cup over our 250th birthday, Greta, there's no larger platform to be able to show off American exceptionalism over our first 250 years and the great hope and promise of the United States over the next 250 years than the FIFA World Cup.
Andrew Giuliani, thank you very much. Say hi to your father for me. Thank you for joining me. And we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Mark Lauder. My career's taken me from the State House to the White House, campaigns for mayor, all the way to President of the United States. I came to Newsmax to help our viewers get more than the headlines, beyond the spin. It's a perspective you'll only see on Newsmax.
We can all agree, steak is for dads. All types of dads. Grill dads, cast iron dads, charcoal dads, tongue snapping dads. United by their love of steak, whatever kind of dad he is. The perfect gift is waiting at Omaha Steaks. His gift could even include 8 free burgers made from premium aged American beef. Get it in time for Father's Day at omahasteaks.com. Here's to all the dads. They've earned this.
It's BOGO time at Cabinets to Go, where you can stock up on style and save on a brand new kitchen. Because right now, when you buy one lower cabinet, you get the upper cabinet for free. Plus, our design experts can even help you plan every stage of your project, from idea to installation. Save on your next kitchen during the buy one, get one free sale now through June 23rd. Shop today in showrooms nationwide or online. Only at Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
What if losing a pair of sunglasses was actually fine? That's why we built Shady Rays. Every pair of Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection, but no matter what happens, whether you drop them in the lake, a wave gets them, they're covered with lost and broken protection.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
Today, kids are navigating an always-on world, consuming more information than ever before. Strengthening youth mental health starts with ensuring kids have strong digital and media literacy skills. Teaching students how to think critically about the content they see online helps them navigate digital spaces thoughtfully and intentionally. We need to teach media literacy in every school. Youth mental health is complex, but media literacy empowers educators and parents to keep kids safe.
I wish I loved my smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish money wasn't so tight.
I wish I can justify the cost.
I wish my insurance could save me more on dental implants.
See what it can do at ClearChoice. Show us your insurance card and save $5,000 on fixed full double arch implants. That's insurance assurance on a smile that's built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
There's no way a mouthwash can prevent bad breath for 12 hours.
You're right, Val. Mouthwash can't, but this is dentist-developed Smart Mouth Activated Mouthwash.
Activated?
Yeah, if your mouthwash isn't activated, it's not Smart Mouth. See, this plus this activate for 12 hours of bad breath prevention, guaranteed. Try it. You won't have bad breath in the morning. Good night, Val.
Get dentist-developed Smart Mouth today. It's the smarter mouthwash, available at these fine retailers.
A woman in Florida gives birth, but it was not her biological baby. Nope, not a riddle. The woman is Tiffany Score and her partner Stephen Mills. They stored 3 embryos at the Fertility Center of Orlando. But Score was implanted with someone else's embryo. With genetic testing, the couple was able to find the baby's biological parents, and according to court records, the couple will keep the baby, but they have reached a custody agreement with the biological parents. Score and Mills have sued both the IVF clinic and a doctor there for this mix-up. The clinic is now closed. The baby, named Shay, is now 6 months old. And we have a new alert. That's right. It's Judges Gone Wild alert. And today's story involves Judge Eleanor Ross. You remember her. She is the United States District Court judge in the Northern District of Georgia. An investigation by the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit found that Judge Ross had sex with a police officer in her chambers, and there's more. It was within earshot of people nearby, including several law clerks. At first, Judge Ross denied the claims. Now, after getting caught and with pressure, she's apologizing to her former law clerks. She says her actions were wrong and she has no excuse. One apology letter reads in part, quote, "You deserve better than to have your experience marred by my own offensive conflict," end quote. I think she meant conduct. But there is more. Judge Ross received a reprimand from the United States Court of Appeals, but the higher court kept it a secret. Shh. Are they covering for her? And despite her denial to the appellate court at first, when she's first confronted, the judge remains on the bench. The Court of Appeals didn't even suspend her for a week or two. 2 Georgia congressmen have now filed resolutions in Congress to impeach her, but they are not alone. Who else wants her gone? Reality TV star Todd Chrisley. Judge Ross presided over the fraud case involving Todd and his wife, Julie Chrisley. I spoke with Todd Chrisley for my podcast, Greta Wire. Chrisley told me he is working with several senators to impeach Judge Ross.
Eleanor Ross was so unprofessional and for the lack of a extended vocabulary, I will just say what is on my mind. You know, just because you're a judge doesn't always mean that you have the credentials to be a judge.
Oh, yeah.
And this woman, her educational level and comprehending a high dollar case, she had none.
But Todd's even more than, it's more than having the experience or whatever, and you've really got to know people and understand. I mean, it's just, there's so much more to judging than having, you know, high LSAT scores or passing the bar.
Oh, you know, it's so bad there in Fulton County in that federal court system and in the court system as a whole in Fulton County that they try not to give her complex cases because she doesn't understand them. Yeah. And in something that has high dollar amounts, they have an attorney assigned to her within the federal building that goes through the case and basically does her job for her, and then she just rubber stamps it.
Last year, Todd and Julie Chrisley were granted a full pardon from President Trump. Former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Jay Town, joins me. Jay, you know, I got it. She's got poor personal behavior. She in her chambers. I got that. But the thing that really gets me is the U.S. Court of Appeals, and they're the ones who have the obligation of at least sort of to look at the lower court to make sure that someone who's got litigants before her that she's probably going to hammer pretty hard for perjury when she lies to them and you know that's or is deceitful. It's okay. She doesn't even get suspended, and it's quiet.
Yeah, I don't understand. So there's really 3 sort of buckets of misconduct here. There's the affair in her chambers. There's lying to the 11th Circuit Chief Judge and the Chief Judge of the Northern District of Georgia. Those 2 men put together the investigation into her misconduct. And then there's the attending of a partisan fundraiser for Fani Willis. She used to work in the DA's office with Fani Willis before she ascended to the presidentially appointed role of district court judge. Anyone else, I don't understand how this is not a career ender. Greta, I mean, how do you get to stay on the federal bench giving any one of those 3 things, much less admitting to all 3? I'm as confounded as you are.
Well, I will give her a pass, believe it or not, on the Fani Willis, because Fani Willis is a state prosecutor and is not going to be in her courtroom. So I will give her a pass, and she probably knew her. You know, I believe it or not, I give some Fani Willis. What I don't give a pass to is this court, but I think that Supreme Court Justice, you know, John Roberts wants to make sure that we all respect the court system. Well, he's at the top of the heap now. The 11th Circuit doesn't do anything. The Chief Judge doesn't do anything. You know, who is going to step in? They expect to bring this up to the court, bring it up to the Senate and impeach her now.
Yeah, and you mentioned it in your read in there that there's 2 congressmen from the state of Georgia who have filed separate articles of impeachment against her for the misconduct, the 3 sort of things that you and I have described. And look, I do hope that this Congress and this Senate can all agree, and they don't agree on much, Greta, as you know, can all agree that this person is not fit to be a United States District Court judge any longer.
You know, Jay, it's that if you had a defendant in a courtroom who was charged with burglary and got on the witness stand and said, I didn't do it, but was convicted, at sentencing, the judge would take into account that the person had first denied it and took the witness stand and lied. Yet she deceived. I don't know what exact words, but I mean, probably lie is a good thing when she was confronted with it. Apparently, Dahl reports is that she denied it to the other judges. She wasn't under oath, but nonetheless, is that sort of that's why I say judges gone wild. Is that the example? And the people who come into her courtroom, they're all going to know that. She gets a pass for being deceitful. They do not.
Right. And what would it take to not get a pass if she does, in fact, get a pass? And don't forget, Greta, at least according to the reports and according to the investigation by the court, she made material false statements to them and only came clean after her story started to unravel about 10 days after her material false statements to the 11th Circuit in the Northern District of Georgia. So would she ever have told the truth? And she threw the law clerk who whistleblew on her under the bus. And that's what the apology today was for, the letter to her. So this is disgusting behavior, needs to be impeachable.
And Chief Justice John Roberts needs to get on this. He needs to clean up his yard. I mean, anyway.
Yes.
Jay Town, thank you.
Thanks,
and it's a story that just doesn't stop. Here's the latest. According to the New York Times, a former cell inmate to the late convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein claims that Epstein tried to end his life 3 times before his August 2019 death. The inmate shared a cell with Epstein at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. The inmate says that shortly after a judge denied Epstein bail in July 2019, Epstein asked him how to make a noose. The inmate says he reported the incidents to jail guards, and the jail guards allegedly laughed it off. The New York Times also reports that Epstein tried to get dirt on President Trump. Why? Well, to give federal prosecutors in hopes of a more lenient sentence, and that Epstein was obsessed with trying to take the president down. This was during Trump's first term in office. Coming up, guess who is back? It's not another Epstein story, but start guessing. That when the record continues.
I love wearing a bikini again and not having to cover up.
Now during Sono Bello's summer savings event, get our best prices of the year and a free personalized consultation. Just one visit permanently removes stubborn fat with Sono Bello's advanced micro laser technology.
My shirts were extra large. Now I'm wearing a bikini.
Save big this summer. Sono Bello is America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Call now for your free consultation. Don't miss your summer savings at Sono Bello.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked, and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
Homeowners, are you really covered?
You have your home fire insurance, flood insurance, accident insurance. But how about your plumbing, your electrical, appliances?
Choice Home Warranty can help cover the repair or replacement of over 25 key systems and appliances. If one breaks down, it won't break the bank getting it repaired or replaced.
Your fridge? Covered. Washer dryer? Covered. Heating? Covered. Your dishwasher? Covered. Your AC? Covered. Hot water heater? That's covered too.
Join the more than 2.4 million homeowners nationwide that have protected their home with Choice. And Choice has a huge nationwide network of trusted technicians. With Choice Home Warranty, there's no home inspection, no commitment. Cancel anytime. Call Choice Home Warranty now and find out how to get special deals only available on the phone and ask how to get your first month free.
Call 800-360-2533.
As you know from our prior reporting, 2 Dan Sullivans entered the race for United States Senate from Alaska. Only one Dan Sullivan remains. Alaska's incumbent Republican Senator Dan S. Sullivan, the other candidate, Dan J. Sullivan, had entered the race also as a Republican. Their campaign logos are similar, which can be confusing. Their logos are the same colors, yellow and white, and both logos feature stars. So was the challenger Daniel J. Sullivan's candidacy legitimate, or was it to deliberately confuse voters? Alaska's top elections official, Lieutenant Governor Nancy Dahlstrom, concluded that Daniel J. Sullivan entered the race simply to mislead voters. She has now ruled him ineligible to be on the ballot. She wrote in part, quote, "Your declaration of candidacy was filed with the purpose of confusing or misleading the electorate and compromising the fairness of the ballot by attempting to access the ballot under a version you have never used, Dan Sullivan, and with a party affiliation, Republican, that you've never before professed," end quote. Ineligible candidate Dan J. Sullivan, who is a former teacher, has not responded to being barred from the ballot. He previously said, though, he was anticipating making a decision on whether to appeal. If he does appeal, though, he better hurry up. Ballots will be printed on June 28th. Here's what Senator Dan S. Sullivan told me 2 weeks ago.
Everybody has a right to be on the ballot, but you don't have a right to be on the ballot if your primary goal is to trick Alaskans and rig the vote in favor of another candidate.
The primary is August 18, and guess what? You're going to start seeing double. The Williams sisters are back. Serena and Venus will be doubles partners at Wimbledon. It's been 4 years since the two played together. That was in 2022 at the U.S. Open. Venus turns 46 tomorrow, and Serena's 44, so their combined age when they play Wimbledon this month is 90 years old. Players competing even in their late 30s is unusual at Wimbledon. The pair hoping to win their 7th Wimbledon doubles title. Serena recently made her comeback to professional tennis. Yesterday, she was practicing in Berlin, Germany. Venus has been back on tour since last summer. And coming up, the World Cup is inspiring some new and most unlikely players to take up soccer. That when the record continues.
Tonight's Newsmax lineup is brought to you by Crown Atlantic. Protect what matters most with fast, affordable life insurance. Visit lifeforless.com.
Falls are the #1 cause of injury to senior citizens. Falling downstairs can be disastrous. Acorn Stairlifts has the solution. Just don't fall. Sit, relax, ride with an Acorn Stairlift, the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right, don't let limited mobility keep you from going up and down your stairs, even outside. Call Acorn Stairlifts now for a free information kit and no obligation quote. Now you can safely ride with your Acorn Stairlift.
Now I don't have to worry about him climbing those stairs anymore.
And our Acorn Stairlift was very affordable.
Our Acorn Stairlift is definitely more affordable than moving.
The Acorn Stairlift has a padded seat and backrest for maximum comfort. It easily folds up for access to the stairway. 5 safety sensors stop your Acorn Stairlift if there is something in the way. And it even runs during power outages.
I am king of my castle again.
You'll be working directly with the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right, there's no middleman. Acorn's trained technicians professionally install your stairlift directly to the staircase. In most cases, in 2 hours or less. There's no need for special construction. We don't leave until you're completely comfortable using your Acorn Stairlift.
Don't risk a serious fall going down the stairs.
I was really surprised at how little it cost.
Call for your free no-obligation information kit and quote from Acorn Stairlifts. Just don't fall. Safely ride up and down your steps.
Give your life a lift with Acorn Stairlifts.
Call 1-800-908-4077 right now for your free information kit or visit our website today. That number again is 1-800-908-4077. Call now.
How was school today?
It was good. They want to cast me as the lead in the school play.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Are you gonna do it? You okay? Honey?
Do you want to talk about it, Daddy?
Yeah.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's all-American customer service team is standing by.
A lot of World Cup fans are loving their time in the United States. Here's a live look at Foxborough, Massachusetts. You see fans from Norway. Who else is happy? These Japanese fans in Texas.
Texas is good. Everything is big. I cannot speak English, but I'm excited. I love it! Yeah!
Some fans brought their culture and customs with them. In Boston, Scottish fans made themselves at home and are livening up residents' commutes. And Americans are loving their visitors right back. The Algerian soccer team chose to make their home base in Lawrence, Kansas. That is 40 miles from Kansas City, where other teams, England and Argentina, chose to stay. The community in Lawrence is embracing the team. One resident welcomed them with these kind words.
So I want to say thank you to Team Algeria for choosing our hometown, Lawrence, Kansas, to come here. And so welcome. Welcome to the United States. Welcome to Kansas.
And with the tournament lasting another month, we're going to be on the lookout for more of moments like these. And the World Cup, of course, is inspiring many to take up soccer. In Houston, even the elephants are playing. This 2-year-old elephant named Kirby could not stop kicking the soccer ball. Houston is one of the cities hosting the World Cup. Houston will host 7 matches. The first was on Saturday. The next is tomorrow, and that is when Portugal takes on the Democratic Republic of Congo. Kirby should keep practicing. You never know if they need more subs. Kirby looks great at this. And don't forget, I have a new podcast called Greta Wire. You'll like it. It's different. You can subscribe now. It's free. Get it on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at newsmax.com/listen. Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.